Hi, my name is Olajide Olagunju, and I'm the author of the book, How to Resolve a Conflict. That's the book right in front of you. And we're in a lecture series. We're doing a lecture series with you on titled How to Resolve a Conflict. This is How to Resolve a Conflict, lecture 14. And what we have to do today is continue looking at chapter 4 of the book, How to Resolve a Conflict. Let's go into chapter 4 now. One second. Yesterday, we looked at what happens in terms of relationship between parties who use an adversarial system, such as the courts and arbitration, to resolve their conflict, as opposed to what happens between them when they are using an amicable approach like mediation. And I emphasize the fact that when they are using an amicable approach, they are more trustful to one another. They go the extra mile to see how they could accommodate each other. When they are using an adversarial forum, like the courts and arbitration, they don't really have much care for one another. It's a battleground, so they are there to war, to fight, to win. And I give an example of a dispute that's a company and their partner, the country, are facing, where the country lost and was and had to pay damages, which they are struggling to deal with now, in probably billions of pounds. So that's what we're looking at yesterday. And I think it sets the stage for what we are looking at in chapter 4 of this book, when mediation works. So let's continue. Mediation works, first of all, because it is a process that encourages parties to focus on the problem rather than on the people. It separates the people from the problem. So let's look at that. At mediation, you're not looking at who is right, who is wrong, who is the winner, who is the loser. We're looking at what works. We're looking at what's the problem. We're not looking at the people as the problem. We separate between the people and the problem. And we don't attack one another, we don't attack each other, we attack the problem. That's the problem, we have a problem. How do we solve that problem? Not you are wrong, I'm right. Not me attacking you or you attacking me. We look at the problem, we attack the problem. How can we resolve this problem? And then we begin to work together towards understanding the problem and looking for a way together to solve it, to resolve it. Very important. Very important. In an adversarial forum, you can imagine that will not be the focus. The focus will be party A, party B, on opposing side. After they've done their performance or drama before the court, that they are acted out their role play or role plays before the court. The court says, you are wrong, party A, you are right, party B. Party A, pay party B costs and damages. Of course, that's why, I mean, and of course, the party that loses would not be happy. I mean, most likely will not be happy. As a rule, will not be happy. And that's why I say, I mean, I cited the Yoruba and Igbo adage earlier on in the series. The adage says, we don't go to court and of course arbitration to make friends. The Igbos will say, as they see, ulo ikpe puta kabuloye. The Yorubas will say exactly the same thing. I can daily Joshua. It means the same thing. We don't go to court to make friends. You know. So if we are enemies before going, we become we have more enmity between us. The court creates more enmity. Why? The focus is on the people and not on the problem, and not on their problem. But you can focus on the problem rather than the people and get them to work together towards resolving their problem. But that is in mediation, not in the court. That's in mediation, where by necessity, because of the nature, because of the paradigm of amicable settlements, of which mediation is one, by the very nature of amicable dispute resolution mechanisms, which is what this lecture series is about, and which is the book, which is the textbook is about. By its very nature, the paradigm is that of seeing each other in conflict as people who have a problem, a joint problem, and see each other as joint problem solvers, which we can never, which is not the paradigm in adversarial methods. So it's good to have that in view. And this, when you move from the court to mediation, when you move from arbitration to mediation, you make a paradigm shift, a very powerful paradigm shift that changes dynamics of conflict resolution, and helps. It does that because it helps you to focus on the problem you have to deal with rather than on yourself. So let's continue our reading. Secondly, mediation serves to educate a party on the other party's point of view. I think I hinted at it yesterday, talking about trust. If I trust you, I want to listen to you. Mediation makes me gradually begin to see you as trustworthy as human. Verbal abuses tumble if they were there. Animosity tumbles if it was there. Brinkmanship tumbles if it was there. Because in this forum, this amicable forum, epitomized by mediation, the idea, the focus is to educate one another, to see, to be more receptive to the other party's point of view. Not to see them as necessarily as antagonists, as enemies, as the problem, but to see them as people who are using the conflict to express an opinion. Who may not be necessarily seeing the conflict as an end, but as a thermometer of the relationship, so that we can better make our thermostat of our relationship more functional, able to adjust the temperature of the relationship so that it could be what it should be, from amicableness to more friendly. So that's very important. Mediation works when and because it helps, because the parties want to understand each other's perspective. Let's continue our reading. Additional mediation works because the process increases the options for resolution. You know, in the other forum, the adversarial forum, options for relations tend to be shortened down. They're shortened down. And of course, the reason is because it's an adversarial forum sees parties as the problem. So they're not looking at the problem because they're not looking at the problem at adversarial fora, such as litigation and mediation, because they're not looking at the problem, but at the people. Of course, the brinkmanship that results short-term options for resolution, effective options for resolution, or more effective options for resolution. The focus is on how do we quickly determine who is wrong, who is right. But in an amicable resolution process, as epitomized by mediation, there's an increase in the number of options for resolution. We're able to generate options for resolution. One of our colleagues, a mediator, Eric Green, once said that the key feature of mediation, of an amicable dispute resolution mechanism or forum, is the generation of options. And I agree with him totally. You know, because when we increase the options, we're able to choose among those options. So the more options we have, through focusing on the problem, you know, oh, this is the problem. Why don't you look at this from this perspective and look at this option? What about this option? What about that option? I mean, on one problem or issue, we could generate, any X number of options. So we're able to choose the best, the most workable. We'll deal with this later both in chapter 6 and chapter 10. Let's continue our reading for a bit. Amicable resolution, mediation also provides an independent viewpoint. Mediation and other amicable approaches also provide an independent viewpoint. So, independent in the sense that it's not about, it's not partial. It's not about what I think, you know, as opposed to what you think. It's about each of us, both of us, the parties in conflict, as it were, holding hands, you know, and looking at it from a joint perspective. So, which is independent of our divergent perspective. So we are able to take a point of view that is not tied to any of our previous viewpoints. And when we begin to understand, when we begin to zero together on a shared perspective, of course, we begin to have the capacity to resolve, to look for options, workable options that attacks the problem we both see together, independently of what might have been our individual perspectives of viewpoint. Of course, on the other hand, in an adversarial forum, it's always opposing views. I can't remember any of the few arbitrations I've been involved in where parties are sitting together and looking at it from a viewpoint, looking at the issues from a viewpoint that is independent of their individual positions. From the beginning to the end, they are most likely seeing from different perspectives, from their different perspectives. But if you now take the same parties into an amicable forum like mediation, they begin to see, because like I said, as they are holding hands, begin to see more and more a joint viewpoint, an independent viewpoint, and the advantages I've just explained. When we see it together, independently of our previous perspective, we are more likely to attack it to get the problem together. And lastly, I'm back to the book. Lastly, and probably most importantly, mediation works because it instills a sense of realism in the parties. Very important. Very important. And of course, it does that because of the paradigm from which it comes. Trustworthiness, more and more. I mean, not at the beginning, but as they continue in this forum, voluntarily, which is necessarily voluntary, they are building trust. They are making incredible admissions, which years of an adversarial approach will never have wrung out of them. They are going the extra mile, both to meet both their needs, individual needs, and those of the other party. And that's a way to make necessary sacrifices, to be more and more selfless in order to reach a settlement. So, and this is why it's a mediation process, like other amicable resolution processes, serves to educate a party. Sorry, forgive me. Not just to educate a party on the other party's views, but it instills in each and all of them a sense of realism. They are more realistic. They are more realistic because they are not antagonists. They are more realistic because they are seeing each other as joint problem solvers. We have to deal with this together. So we have to be realistic. We can't continue to grandstand and to be displaying brinkmanship, fight to finish. No. They're focused on the solution, on the problem and the solution to it. Joint problem, joint solution. So it's kind of realistic. So the resolution would more likely than not, especially if you have a good mediator that understands the skills that we are sharing in this lecture series, they're able to come out with something that will work, something realistic. I think we should stop here for today. Tomorrow in the next lecture, lecture 15, we'll continue on this subtopic of when mediation works. But in the meantime, please remember to share your ideas, post your ideas, and if you can, get a free copy of this book that we are using, this textbook for this lecture series, How to Resolve a Conflict. That's the title of the book. Get it from use your Kindle to get a free copy. And if you don't have a Kindle or you want a soft copy, you can also get it as well as a hard copy. All three are available on Amazon. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.